all joking aside, Daniel Pires, I only ever talk about the supernatural, just about the supernatural. And it's a real pleasure to be here today because we're going to have a conversation. And, I always say this, she always gets mad at me. Well, she's already become a friend, but one of the most influential mediums in Brazil today, Maíra Rocha, I mean, in my opinion, she writes psychographed letters, Maíra receives the messages with great ease. I've seen some of her videos. I saw her here. You were talking earlier, and for those not used to it, it can be a bit scary, right? Because it's a very unique communication with her ability to hear spirits. Will she tell us more?
I was very afraid during my childhood of other spirits.
Is that so?
A lot of fear, because very strange things happened back then, which for me wasn't easy to understand. I had a great friend named Adrianinha, but she had passed on. She was dead.
And I used to play with the other little friends, and there was a thicket near my house now, so we'd play ball, and the ball would come back, and the girls would run. But for me, it was easy because I'd say, it's Adrianinha.
Did the ball come back by itself? The kids playing in the street?
It wasn't alone, but to those who didn't see, it was alone. And it kept coming back. And I remember so much nowadays when some horror movies play that have this ball situation. Have you seen? There are horror films where, and then people say, no, it happens. Sometimes they possess a certain force and are still attached to matter, which enables them to produce this kind of physical effect. It's quite common for this to occur with household appliances, with televisions, very common for it to happen due to the sheer ease of it as well. Well, near this girl, she used to scare all my friends. All my incarnated friends were afraid of her, but I wasn't. Until one day she told me her story. In her story, she had been murdered by someone from her own family, a man from her own family. And then she told me they only found her hair. And that really left a mark on me for a long period of my childhood. So I started to feel some fear then from those very first stories.
What was Adrianinha like? Was she a short blonde girl?
She was a brunette girl with very long hair. She wore pink shorts, Havaiana sandals, a typical country girl. In fact, when we played, I'd tell her to use her Havaianas as goalposts for the ball. Have you ever played soccer like that? You just put the goal there, right?
Put a flip-flop, one on each of the two sides.
So the girls would say, no goal, and I'd say, the Havaianas are there, but there were no Havaianas because only I could see them.
Folks, it was the spirit's casual everyday essential. Of the spirit he was molding.
And was it only you who saw?
Only I and my grandma saw it. My grandma, who has already passed away, she saw it, but she said she saw souls, My grandma was a woman who had no schooling, but she had enormous wisdom. And she was the first to welcome me. So from the start, when I told her what I saw, she believed me, she welcomed me, and I went to live with my grandmother because it was easier for me. For a long time, my mother and we struggled a lot with that situation, though. It was a long time. So for a long time, I didn't tell anyone, just my family. And it was common to say, she's a little crazy and not normal. That was common back then.
That's exactly why I asked you, right? How did you manage to differentiate that? And if you've ever really gone deep into your own mind and thought, am I schizophrenic? Am I truly out of my mind? You've had that search, right?
Very much so. You can imagine that during the adolescent phase, it's even more difficult. It's difficult to maintain friendships. It's difficult to maintain emotional relationships when you're going through this process.
You tell them, of course. You say, doctor from my faith, I see spirits, I psychograph messages.
I had a wonderful psychiatrist who moved away from Brazil, and the first time she's an atheist. So when I first went to her office, I was trying to go through this process of acceptance there was a phase in my life where I really wanted people to believe. I made a huge effort for people to believe. I wanted them to be able to. As maturity approaches, you begin to understand that you're not here to prove anything to anyone. You only need to do your very best and what you are meant to do. So when I got to her, I was in a very confused phase, wanting to quit my job, wanting everything. And I told her, look, I came here because I run a charity home. I have people I help and I do mediumistic work along with other mediums. And I told her everything that was happening. And she said, what do you see? Then I said, I see people who have disincarnated, who have died. Then she asked, oh yes, and what exactly do these people tell you? And so I started explaining it all to her, just recounting everything. And then one particular day during one of our sessions, she told me, you absolutely won't give up on the work that you're doing. If this truly benefits people, those who believe will continue to follow, and those who don't believe will simply move forward. Sa t'avais to respect it and move on, well, you can't stop your work, shetiga. Even though she didn't, believe it, but she did manage to understand the purpose. But it was so funny because suddenly she'd call me and say, and what are your friends saying about this? Now they don't make it.
So there is a curiosity, right?
Oh, what are my friends saying? Yeah. And then one day I had a session and I went to do it with her. And then I spoke about a blue beetle that her family had, her mother, her father who had passed away. And she said, how do you know that? And then we started, doctor, it's been a very long time that we've been in this relationship. How do you think I know?
That's it. I need to accept and work now.
You were never afraid, right?
I had them back in my teenage years. And, even to this day, I still do, okay? I'll tell you, most of them I don't have anymore, no, but there are some spirits that still cause me fear. Look, there was this one story.
You don't actually see how people died, do you? No, right?
He's beginning
There's
to
a
take
film?
form.
No, but
Look,
there are
he's
some
beginning to
instances
take
where I think she actually saw it, yes. The
Third
sixth
interpretation.
sense.
They shape and present themselves in the manner they need to be perceived, at least for the initial encounter, so that this interaction can successfully take place. Though some power for others to understand who their loved one is, they sometimes perceive them in a way that's not pretty, not good, but molded. And I remember I had a lecture I was going to give at a spiritual center in the morning the next day. It was Saturday. And on Sunday, I was going to give this lecture. In Brasilia, there are 6 months of drought. It doesn't rain.
It's dry, really dry. It's enough to make you feel unwell.
And this spirit, all in white, but his gaze, the very shape of his face was so, it looked like a horror movie when someone is really pale, long nails, but completely dressed in white. And he arrived there and said, look, in that spiritual center, we are the ones who decide who will give the lecture. No,
Just
it's
like that
not.
one?
To be honest, yes, I was at home and I called my husband and said, come here, something is happening right here. And I'm very, very scared. And then he would say, if you go, you all will suffer an accident on the way to that center. And then, sometimes they try to intimidate us like that. In the beginning, when you don't have maturity, you don't want to take risks, do you? But not today. Today, you just talk to them and say, brother, you simply cannot do this. You're not allowed to. But that day I said, no, I'm going. I'm not going there to try and take your position. I'm just going there to speak with these other people who truly need to hear the gospel, right? I said, yeah, and he said, no, if you go, you'll have an accident with your children and your husband. Because I used to take the boys to the lecture. Well, I went to sleep. It was incredibly boring, a real drag. The next day at 7 in the morning, the lecture was at 9. At 7 a.m., it started to rain, a real downpour. And he said, I die in an accident caused by the rain. Did you go? I didn't either. I said, no, I didn't go. And that was the end of it. I didn't go.
But he said you were going to pass away?
He said, oh, no, if you leave your house to give this lecture at my center, at my center, he would say exactly like this, you'll die in an accident, there'll be a heavy rain, your car will skid. He started telling me all of this, and my husband would say, no, what is this, Mera? This has been a spiritist, of the doctrine for a long time, and what is this, Mera? This is just trying to scare you. But when I woke up at 7 in the morning during a dry season, totally abnormal, a heavy rain, I didn't go.
I wasn't in a...
Hi, Mara. We're waiting for you here. Aren't you coming?
No. At that point, I called...
Why? The spirit, look, talk to him here, see?
I called someone from the center, Toby Center, and asked them to give the lecture in my place,
okay.
I didn't explain what had happened, but I made this request. There's a spirit that I've already talked about with Daniel on the Linda cast.
It's about the girl with the little mouth, the sewn mouth. She really scares me a lot.
So that's why I understand why now. I understand why you blocked, because look at the things she sees.
I have, of her, I feel a certain apprehension, Vilela, and I never managed, even with my mentor's help, because it requires the medium to... Today I know, but look, she doesn't speak. She doesn't speak. Yeah.
Everybody. Psh, but through spirit, you talk here. Yeah.
You can speak by telepathy, right?
That's a little joke, right?
Just a moment.
Watch out. That little joke will come back to you,
No. Go on then. You can speak through telepathy, but I really don't want to.
Oh,
why
my
isn't
God.
she speaking?
No. And it was my mentors who eventually brought me. After a really, really, really long time struggling with her, they gave me the information that she had been a young girl who was abused during a very, very distant time when she was working with her mother on a farm. Her parents were employed on that farm, and she also worked there. And so the owner of this farm is said to have raped her and then killed her because she had become pregnant. She was just a young woman. And so
Of course, nothing is a coincidence, nor by chance. The area where I live today was completely rural. It was farmland. Now it's become residential, but for you to get an idea, there can't even be businesses or anything yet because it still remains very rural, and she believes that I am this spirit, the one responsible for her death. That, in theory, I might have been, right? I don't know. I might have been in a past life, that
in a
person who
previous
did
life.
this to her. But I've already tried everything with her to talk, to say, well, if I did something to you, give me a chance to show that now I am a different person. I am a different spirit. I am, on this path and all. But she, in the middle of the night, when I want to get some water and I open my bedroom door, she doesn't always show up. But when she does, I already know I won't be sleeping. I open the bedroom door and she's right there in the hallway in the dark, staring intently at me. And then she moves her head like this. She tilts her head to the side because she knows a sonar with a head. That's a horror movie, right? Head tilted to the side. So I go inside and tell my husband, hey, let's go to the kitchen for water. Then he said, and why don't you go alone? Because I was scared, right? So I said, because I'm scared. Oh, you think I'm going? No, you can get water in the morning. Oh, he's not going either, neither of them?
Because when I say this spirit,
you'll go to those big demijohns over there that go glug, glug, glug.
Imagine this out of nowhere. But when I say I'm afraid of a spirit, people usually say, no, well, she's...
Your business went south, didn't it?
She's one of the very few spirits that still manages to scare me to this day. And she has like a real tendency to... She truly wants to scare you. So sometimes you're just washing dishes and there in my kitchen's little window that looks outside, she comes right up onto the window. So you're just there and then she appears.
well, we were standing there face to face right inside the shower stall.
Oh my God.
So, it's...
This is a movie, Mara. And does she still appear?
She doesn't appear every day. She shows up, for example, I've come to realize when my affinity is low. When I've when I've had a fight at home, when I've argued with a coworker, when I'm feeling that my vibration is low, then it tends to appear in these, because we attract spirits through affinity, right? We attract in spiritism. We always say, Kaya, tell me who you are and I'll tell you who you walk with. It's not the other way around. And so it's about working on the vibrational pattern in order to have visions of spirits more evolved or on the path of evolution. And it's not always easy because we live in a material world, So even though many religious people, and I consider myself religious because I want to be religious, as I told you.
A question like this, we come from a legacy of Chico Xavier here in Brazil, don't we? When we speak of Spiritism, we have, I believe the majority are Catholic, right? Then evangelical. And Spiritism it's the third largest religion with the most. Is Spiritism a religion for you, or is it a doctrine, first and foremost?
So, Spiritism can be considered either a religion or a philosophy, There are these two distinct aspects. It cannot be considered a religion in an institutional sense, but it can be considered a religion in the sense of the word religare, meaning to connect to the divine. So there are people who practice Spiritism as a religion, and it can be a philosophy for those who consider other religions for their spiritual practice, but still want to delve deeper into Spiritism.
So he can be both of them, and Chico used to say the same thing.
Chico used to say that this possibility exists. When asked on Pingafogo, Emmanuel responds alongside him. So for me, the Spiritism is a philosophy. And as I've told you, I view it as a doctrine and as a religion. It's a support for my life. So I embrace it in both ways at different moments, no?